Hi there, Powerstroke Maintenance here, and today I'm going to be talking about an easy way for you to remember how to complete basic maintenance on your 6.7 Powerstroke or really any other pickup truck that's out there. The best way that I have found to keep track of maintenance on my truck is to remember the two F's. F number one is filters, F number two is fluids. So when you're looking at a big rig like this that has a lot of moving componentry and various gears and all kinds of things that need lubrication, the best way to remember that is you're going to need to replace filters and you're going to need to replace fluids. That is the basics of maintaining any vehicle for the long term. Obviously, there are some other items like you could, rotate your tires and you can grease your front end, and there's, lots of other add-ons, but the very basics of vehicle maintenance and truck maintenance to get a lot of longevity out of a vehicle is to focus on your filters and focus on all your fluids. And what more important fluid to start with on this truck than the diesel fuel you're putting in? So you want to try to find good quality diesel fuel. You can also just look for stations that move through a lot of fuel, so you're not getting fuel that's been sitting in a tank underground for months at a time. The other thing I always try to do is run an additive. So I do use Arch Oil in my truck. They sponsor this channel. You can get 10% off any of their products on their website if you use the code PSM10. But fuel is obviously one of the more important fluids to focus on when you're trying to maintain a vehicle, and specifically in diesel, where the quality of diesel is low. Running an additive can help bring up and increase the quality of that fuel that you're putting in your truck. Obviously, you also have your DEF, but you're not really doing any maintenance on the DEF system other than just try to run like decent quality DEF and make sure you're filling it up. But there's no drain and fill of the DEF system. Your DPF does that for you. And along with that, the fuel, especially with the Powerstroke 6.7, is the fuel filters. So we're gonna talk about both fluids and filters today. And so when we're talking about quality of diesel fuel, you can't just run additives and not change your filters. So you have a filter up here and you also have a filter down here. And both of these should be changed at least every 15,000 miles to make sure that your engine is getting high quality fuel. Also, bonus filter for us guys that have the SNS disaster prevention kit, this filter filters any extra fuel that goes to the return line to your diesel tank. So on top of the diesel fuel and the diesel fuel filters, you also have your oil. And so for the Powerstroke 6.7, you want to be running probably 5W40 or 10W30. One of the two. 5W40 is recommended for heavy duty use, and so that's what I use, especially if you're doing a lot of around town trips. And you want to make sure you're changing that every 5,000 miles along with the filter. There's the filter and the oil pan with the drain plug. So every 5,000 miles, oil filter, and change your oil. Another bonus filter, air filter, right? You want to be replacing your air filter. I usually do mine with a visual inspection, so this one's getting on there a little bit. I'll probably replace this in the next 5,000 to 10,000 miles, but I'll keep an eye on it. They do have on some of the aftermarket intakes an air indicator, but I think you should still do a visual inspection of your air filter whenever you can. Primary coolant system over here, which I like to drain and fill every 30,000 miles. And then you have your secondary over here, and this is every 30,000 miles as well. Now, plus minus on coolant, like a lot of times people will just go 100,000, or some people won't even bother changing their coolant, but I like to, and especially for guys that run their trucks a lot and are doing a lot of towing, keeping high quality coolant, fresh coolant in your vehicle can make sure the engine is running at optimal temperature. And last but not least, I almost forgot, but power steering fluid. So I like to do this about every 50,000 miles, and it is just the same as the Ford transmission fluid, which is Mercon LV. Your transmission dipstick is actually coincidentally right over there, but power steering fluid, same as the transmission fluid for these trucks, and I like to do this about every 50K. You could do it sooner if you wanted, but Anyway, make sure you're doing power steering fluid. There's no filter, but fluid, very important. This is my transmission pan right here. I got a BD deep sump pan. And a lot of you guys who still have your stock pan on, for some years you'll realize they didn't include a drain plug in the OEM pan. And so what I decided to do, unfortunately, was to take off this pan when I did my trans drain and fill, which I do about every 60,000 miles. And there's also a filter in here that you need to change, so that goes with fluids and filters. But I took this pan off, or the OEM pan off, and changed the filter and then bolted on this BD pan. It increased my transmission fluid capacity by an extra 2 quarts, and it has a bunch of these heat sink fins which are supposed to keep your trans temp down. And I did notice the temp had dropped by about 5 degrees, which isn't a lot, but it's some. But it also gives you this nice drain plug here, which makes draining the trans fluid way easier than the OEM pan, because when I did the OEM, I just cracked a bunch of bolts off and let it drip, and it was a huge mess. But now I don't have to worry about it because I have a drain plug. So moving back from the transmission, you have your transfer case, and you'll see 2 bolts. There's one up here and one right here. In order to drain and fill the transfer case, I usually crack the top one and then you drain out of the bottom. It usually takes about 3 quarts. There's no filter, and it also uses Mercon LV, but I like to do this at the same time as the transmission just to get the 2 done. And last but certainly not least is you have your front and your rear axle fluid needs to be changed. I do those around every 100K. I don't tow heavy super often, but I feel like if I did, I would probably do it the same as the transmission and transfer case, like every 60. Definitely doing it sooner doesn't hurt, but waiting until, 100K to do it isn't terrible either. So I usually will hit front and rear axle at 100K and do them both, get them fresh fluid and all ready to go. The one thing I am not sure about, and this is what I would actually ask the community about for input, is brake fluid. Are you draining and filling your brake fluid in a certain interval? Usually I just ask to make sure that the shop, when they do a brake job, which for me brake jobs are usually 75K, every 75K, every 80K. Usually I ask that they do a bleed of the brake lines, but outside of that, do you guys have a maintenance interval you're following? I don't really follow one, but like I said, I try to stay on top of it if someone's doing a brake job for me. Anywho, thank you for watching. I hope this video of the locations and the various items was helpful to you all. Definitely, if I missed something, let me know, but I think that was a pretty comprehensive list. I hope that's helpful to you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time here on Powerstroke Maintenance. Cheers.